Well, good afternoon or morning, depending on where you're from, and welcome to the 2021 Nasda Winter Policy Conference. This year's theme is Together at the Table, and I'm so proud that although virtually, we're able to meet once again what is usually a trademark event in Washington, D.C. We have a great agenda for you with some phenomenal speakers lined up. We've worked very hard to get us to this point so that we can grow where we're planted in our government agencies, businesses, universities, or wherever you may be joining us over the next few days. I too wish we were meeting in person, but after our successful North Dakota annual policy meeting, I'm so happy that we can once again meet virtually and hope to have you in Louisville, Kentucky later this year in September. Before I begin my formal remarks, I'd like to take a moment to take care of a couple of housekeeping items. First, I would like to recognize the many sponsors who have made this conference possible, even during a pandemic. Though we're unable to gather in person this year, this conference would not be possible without the financial support of our sponsors. So thank you very much. And if you don't mind, reach out to those who helped make this possible and say a personal thank you over the next few days. I would also like to say that our hearts and prayers are with those in Texas and other areas of the United States, which had to deal with severe winter weather recently. I would also like to take a moment to recognize 500,000 COVID-related deaths. At this point, every single American has known someone who's been affected by COVID-19. So whether it be our frontline workers, but of course our agriculture professionals, I want to say a sincere thank you because in agriculture, we're not just essential, but we are necessary. I would also like to take a moment to recognize and welcome a couple new Nasda members who have either been appointed or elected to their positions recently. Mike Foster of Montana, Greg Butters of Utah, Hunter Roberts of South Dakota. Congratulations on your position and welcome to the Nasda family. And speaking of new positions, not to be presumptuous, but I want to say a sincere congratulations to Virginia's Secretary of Agriculture, Joel Brano, who is the nominee for Deputy Secretary at the United States Department of Agriculture. We are very excited for you, and we hope that other NASDA members, both current and former, join the ranks of the new administration as well. Last but not least, I want to take a moment to say thank you to NASDA CEO Barb Glenn and our incredible NASDA staff who have put in countless hours into planning and executing this event. We wouldn't be here without your hard work and dedication. So please allow us a moment to say thank you for all the hard work that you've done over the past several months to make this conference a success. I would also like to say thank you to our NASDA board members and those on the executive team as well. Now, with the formalities out of the way, I would like to officially welcome each and every one of you to the Winter Policy Conference. This conference gives us an opportunity to learn from each other, to share best practices, and in turn, take what we've learned and take it back home to our own states so we can better run our state departments of agriculture. The great Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis, a Kentuckian, mind you, once called the states of the Union's laboratories of democracy. And this fellow Kentuckian believes that this is just as true today as it was when he wrote that line back in 1932. As state leaders, in some cases, we are more accessible to the American people than those in Washington, D.C. And that means we often get immediate and robust feedback about the good things we do and the areas of policy that we may have overlooked, need to have a second try with. Occasionally, that feedback isn't about what isn't working, but is about what is working. And to be more blunt, a lot of us get fan mail to tell us if we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Well, that makes us unique guardians of democracy because we are close to the people whom we serve. Our states are home to innovative leaders and pioneers who are on the front lines of our farm life and conducting experiments both in the fields and labs across the nation. They develop solutions by working together. And that's the American agriculture way, working together. We see this in our own industry where farmers and ranchers work together to find out what's best and then share those ideas with others. This year's theme is by no accident called Together at the Table, a homage to the idea of working together and an ode to NASDA's mission to be a convener for the food and agriculture industry of the United States. Then in the next few days, you will see this theme played out as we hear from some wonderful speakers, more than 25 big thinkers, who will challenge our conventional thinking and share the latest on our global food and agriculture policy. I'm excited that this year's conference has an incredible response, and due to our virtual format, we have more than 500 Nasda members, state staff, federal agencies, congressional staff, industry leaders, and students who are here as our guests as well. Our conference attendees look a lot like America, a diverse array or tapestry of many colors, identities, faiths, and values. But despite those differences, all are dedicated to the idea of emulating the example set to us for our farmers and ranchers. And that is to let's figure out what works and share it so others can learn as well. We have some challenges ahead: lingering trade issues, disruptive new technologies, a lack of nationwide broadband, and an aging workforce. We also have a new president and Congress looking to develop and execute policy. I want to clearly state, Nasda is here to play that critical role, to be together at the table, working to find solutions for farmers and ranchers across the United States. You know, this past year has been a difficult one for our country. From a pandemic to racial unrest to political campaigns, 2020 will go down as one of the most trying periods in American history. But even in that turmoil, we saw some points of light. We saw Republicans and Democrats mobilize the federal government to provide relief to the American people in an unprecedented way. We saw our scientists and research community develop a safe and effective vaccine in record speed. And all the while, our farmers and ranchers kept doing what they do best, producing the food, fiber, and fuel that we all rely upon. And chances are, you know some farmers who never took a day off or went to a Zoom meeting during the past year. And Nasda is committed to doing its part in being a bright spot. As many of you all know, over the course of the past year, there's been an incredible stress on our national economy. Many Americans lost their jobs and found themselves at a food bank for the first time in their lives. Hunger has always existed in America, but this nation saw an increase previously unthought of in the United States due to the global pandemic. Prior to this past year, here in Kentucky, we started what's called the Kentucky Hunger Initiative years ago to combat food insecurity across my Commonwealth. And we were so blessed to bring together members of the agricultural community, charitable organizations, farmers, faith groups, community leaders, and government entities to look for ways to reduce hunger in Kentucky. Little did we know that 3 or 4 years later, we would have a global pandemic. And we were able to learn upon these successes of the past and activate that network that was already established to help keep Kentuckians fed. And nationwide this past year, you all know these statistics. Before the pandemic, roughly 17% of all Americans were considered food insecure. During the pandemic, we saw a 30% increase in the number of Americans utilizing food banks, many for the first time in their lives. We also saw unfortunate dumping of food or food that was diverted that didn't make it to a marketplace or final destination. We also saw lines to our food pantries, sometimes miles long in our states. But yet it was the American farmer and your hard work that helped the American people prevent hunger being a compounding issue of an already complicated global pandemic. A lot of times in the farm community, farmers focus on statistics. We focus on yields, we focus on efficiencies. But I challenge you over the next couple of days to think about the statistics of those consumers that may not have the money to afford to buy food. They deserve access to quality food as well. And in many cases, your state departments of agriculture are already rising to the challenge to help out in the anti-hunger relief effort across our country. It was in this spirit that back in September, as the incoming president, I challenged you to participate in a food insecurity survey so that we here at Nasda could compile the results of what's going on around the country and develop a food insecurity deliverable at this policy winter meeting. We found an assortment of ideas from local food policy councils to public-private partnerships across the United States. We learned that more than 15 states already have programs that encourage producers and farmers to donate blemished or seconds or surplus items to local food banks. We also saw that many states offer certain liability protections for grocery stores and wholesale retailers who donate food as well. What we learned from this study is that the clearest path forward in achieving food security across the United States is through a strong and robust public private partnership. State departments of agriculture can benefit from public and private partnerships and make a larger impact than they would operating alone. Again, together, we are at this table. Tapping into supply chains, retailers, wholesalers, and producers allow us to have a larger reach through the states for fresh, nutritious food to those who are experiencing unfortunate food insecurity. Through feedback from you and your state departments of agriculture, Nasda found that developing policies within the public-private partnership arena is a vital component for our success. And at the end of the day, rather than creating a document that just simply states what states are already doing, we thought that we would present to you today, over the course of today and the rest of this week, a deliverable that we call a food security toolkit. And I hope you have it in front of you. It's a 10-page document that talks about what you all are doing, but it also categorizes the various different food insecurity projects that you as commissioner, secretary, or director may want to implement in your own state, whether it be senior farmers markets, nutritional programs that flow through your department, to producing gleaning programs, to tax incentives for farmers. There is something in this toolkit that I guarantee that your state hasn't tried yet, and you as a leader in agriculture are best positioned to implement and help move the needle and have less Americans being reliant upon food pantries and our food banks. Just to name off some of the events that are going on right now across the United States that are being facilitated by fellow members of Nasda, we have backpack programs, we have changes to the liability laws here in Kentucky. We changed the laws so that grocery stores can't be sued for donating food, and we saw that the number of produce being donated only went up. We also recognize that there's a lack of freezers and cold storage oftentimes at our food pantries. And so many of you all are oftentimes donating or finding freezers that can help produce and safely store, say, dairy products or perishables. We've also seen an uptick in the number of organizations that are gleaned through fields that have already been harvested, looking for those seconds for that food that may have a blemish on it and getting it to a food bank. We've also seen some innovative collaborations with our hunting community. Here in Kentucky, we have a Hunters for the Hungry program where deer hunters can donate their harvest to the food bank, as well as take some home with them. We've also seen cattlemen's groups, pork producers, other livestock groups partner with food banks to not only donate, but in some cases get food that would otherwise go to a grocery store into the food banks and be compensated for it. We've even seen 4-H and FFA members donate their prize-winning steer or hog at the local county fair or state fair to our food banks, and we find donors along the way to pay for the processing. Many of you all have made great strides in the double dollar program, meaning that those consumers that shop at farmers markets can double their purchase power due to the generous donations of private organizations, healthcare companies, and perhaps the federal government as well. We also have programs where money is raised to help buy food from farmers and put it into the food bank so that those clients that need it have the dignity of having access to local, fresh, nutritious food. Here in Kentucky, we call it the Farmers Food Bank Program. We've also seen that many of you are leveraging both state and federal dollars in a very efficient way. And here in Kentucky, we definitely have some progress to make on better leveraging federal food nutrition dollars into our food banks as well. We also have seen a robust conversation from the EPA, from your state organizations about the concept of reducing food waste in America. 40% of all food that is prepared daily ends up in a trash can. I know that's a heartbreaking statistic, but in many cases, there's not much you can do to harvest that food, but in some cases there are. In fact, the amount of food waste in America, if you were to put it in one pile, after 1 year, it would fill up 737 NFL stadiums each and every year in food waste. We can do a better job. And as commissioners secretaries and directors of agriculture, we must understand that no one can take on food insecurity issues quite like you can. So I challenge you today to take a look at the Nasda Food Security Toolbox and learn about what your state may be doing, but more importantly, things that you may be able to implement in your state as well, with your governor, with your legislature as well. And the best part about the Food Security Toolkit is that your fellow Nasda members are running these programs. So we're only just a text message, call, or email away if you need more information. So with that said, I am so excited that again, we can gather for the 2021 Winter Policy Conference virtually, have more attendees than ever, and get to learn and listen from high caliber speakers over the next 3 days. So together, we're at this table. I'm so excited about the progress Nasda has made, but there's never been a more influential time for our organization to be strong, to be resilient, and be our eyes and ears on Capitol Hill, as we know there's going to be many issues to confront, many issues to be engaged in, and many solutions that we know Nasda will be part of the solution. And speaking of wonderful speakers, we're so delighted to have Nasda CEO and fellow University of Kentucky Wildcat alum, Dr. Barb Glenn, for a CEO update. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Quarles, for those wonderful remarks. Really appreciated that. And I'd like to welcome all of you to the Nasda Winter Policy Conference. Your work to advance food and agriculture systems is important, and we are grateful that you take time to join us today. I'm so excited that today we have almost 40 students with us who are collegiate members of Manners, and they're joining the Nasda Foundation at the Ag Policy Summit being held in parallel with our conference. I want to begin by thanking President Quarles and the Nasda Board of Directors for their leadership and counsel. Nasda's new vision is that agriculture leads the way toward a healthy and resilient world. This vision is our guiding star as we continue to respond and recover from the pandemic. The healing process has indeed begun, and together we will create the new normal. I'd also like to take a minute to thank our federal cooperative partners, USDA NASS, USDA FAS, as well as the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Also, Nasda partners continue to provide amazing support to Nasda, allowing us to sustainably pursue our vision. At the President's Circle, appreciation goes out to Bayer, Land O'Lakes, Merck Animal Health, and Syngenta. So how do we ensure that agriculture will continue to lead the way? Well, I'd like to share 4 perspectives with you. To begin with, together at the table is so true. This is not just a slogan. Now more than ever, farmers, ranchers, and food industry workers, essential services, keeps our food supply strong and contributes to our food security and our national security. We have added opportunity to work with the new administration and new congressional leadership, which we're very excited about. I believe the learnings from the pandemic are clear and illuminating. We must be together at the table. We must work together in partnerships, and we must plow common ground. We believe our work building consensus among state departments of agriculture makes our seat at the table ever more important. The need to gather together is urgent. We must not be complacent. We have to get used to being comfortable being uncomfortable, and we must gather. We must have meaningful dialogue, debate, and set priorities to nourish people and communities, ensuring that agriculture leads the way toward a healthy and resilient world. This week, Nasda is proud to have you at the table for transparent discussions to make new policy, create new partnerships, and establish our focus for the year. Secondly, as nonpartisan, credible public servants, Nasda members are indeed uniquely qualified. As commissioners, secretaries, and directors of state departments of agriculture, Nasda members' duty is to provide public service to their citizens, rural, urban, and everyone in between. Combined with Nasda's nonpartisan nature, our members' local perspective and their expertise, and their co-regulatory role with the federal government, Nasda members are uniquely positioned to form partnerships across the food and agriculture supply chain. This conference is the place where federal policies are vetted, they're improved, and they're verified by our members using their experiences in state government and policy implementation, all to hone in on a unified direction for agriculture. Thirdly, NASDA's policy priorities are state priorities, but they're also everyone's priorities. NASDA's policy priorities for 2021 emerged during the pandemic recovery, and they were enriched by those experiences and leadership of state departments of agriculture, using new flexibilities, new creativity, resources, and indeed partnerships that guaranteed successes. Our 2021 priorities include international trade, food systems and food safety, infrastructure, climate resiliency, and workforce development. But this week, we'll also add on new policy amendments and action items that our members will be voting on such topics as more on hunger and food insecurity, local and regional food processing, worker protections, the One Health approaches, and land preservation and succession programs, along with more. I'm also very proud that NASDA has taken a leadership role in our support for diversity and inclusion and racial equity in agriculture. NASDA recognizes that the future of agriculture and our mission relies on having diverse perspectives and the best talent and leadership we can bring to the table. Advancing equity and opportunities to support diverse farmers, as well as diverse future leaders of all kinds, is so important. We have vigorously asserted our opposition to systemic racism, our support for diversity and equity, and we have committed to advancing this important framework. We are indeed listening and learning. And finally, I'd like to say that building effective and creative partnerships, as President Quarles has stated, is indeed a strategic priority going forward for NASDA. The food supply chain was and remains strong. 2020 pushed us to work together more than ever before, leading us to recognize the power of partnerships. We know that to meet the prolonged demands of COVID-19 and to continue to innovate our food system, that partnerships are key. The NASDA Food Security Toolkit that was introduced by President Quarles is a unique set of best practices to fight hunger and assure food secure states. The toolkit is not only evidence that NASDA members have led in these unique partnerships in every state and every territory with remarkable results, but it's also the roadmap for the future for new food and agriculture systems. Partnerships indeed extend our reach, reveal new perspectives, they multiply our impact, and they inspire more to engage and take action. So in summary, for more than 100 years, state departments of agriculture have been building partnerships to nourish people and communities while serving as stewards of the environment and of the public trust. Our members' diverse perspectives and government leadership roles strengthen NASDA's united voice. After all, these attributes embolden NASDA to lead achievable nonpartisan solutions to policy issues from farm to fork. Recognizing the power of partnerships and the value of diverse perspectives, our imperative is indeed to be together at the table. With more seats at the table, we'll challenge each other and we'll find new ways to build better solutions for American agriculture and all who it serves. I join President Quarles in urging that together we will achieve our vision for a future in which agriculture leads the way toward a healthy and resilient world. I invite you to join us at the table this week and beyond, so enjoy the conference. And with that, President Quarles, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Glenn. On behalf of the NASDA membership, we couldn't be more proud of the tenure that you've had as our CEO, as well as the amazing staff at NASDA. And a special recognition that she put our employee safety first during the COVID pandemic. And we're continuing to make sure that our NASDA staff get the resources that they need, both in person, but also working virtually at home. So thank you, Dr. Glenn. We have a couple moments until our speakers arrive. I just want to say that last week, many of our members joined us for calls with the Foreign Agriculture Service, with NAS, as well as the FDA. And we encourage our members to continue to be engaged because oftentimes we can have direct conversations with policymakers, even as nominees continue to be named along the way. So thank you for joining us last week as well. At this time, I would like to introduce our speakers for the first time together with Nasda and a first joint appearance as well with us. The name of this panel is called the 117th Congress, a preview of agricultural policy. And at this time, I would like to introduce Chairman Scott and Ranking Member Thompson together, with Chairman Scott speaking first. And as the 117th Congress gets underway, both Senate and House Ag committees are beginning their work under almost entirely new leadership. We welcome the incoming members of both the House and Senate Ag and look forward to working with them. It's my pleasure to introduce Congressman David Scott. In 2002, Congressman Scott was elected to the United States Congress. He is currently in his 10th term representing Georgia's 13th congressional district, which includes 6 counties around the metro Atlanta area, including Cobb, Clayton, Douglas, Fayette, Fulton, and Henry. He began his long career in public service by being elected to the Georgia General Assembly in 1974. As chairman of the Ag Committee, Congressman Scott recognizes the vital role ag plays in the success of our country and in Georgia. He fights every day to protect the interests of farmers, ranchers, and food processors. He also works to ensure that America's agriculture sector continues to grow and remains globally competitive. He co-authored a law to reform the federal dairy program, which keeps prices affordable to consumers. He's also a big supporter of our land-grant universities, such as the University of Georgia and Fort Valley State University, recognizing the significant role that they play in both research and education and agriculture. And in a historic moment, Congressman Scott is the first African-American chairperson of the House Ag Committee. We're very proud of that. I would also like to quickly introduce Congressman Gt Thompson as well, then hand it over to our speakers. Congressman Thompson is a lifelong resident of Howard Township of Center County, Pennsylvania. Congressman Gt Thompson, GT, represents Pennsylvania's 15th district in the United States House of Representatives. Prior to being elected, he represents the largest congressional district, and he spent 28 years as a therapist, rehabilitation service manager, and a licensed nursing home administrator. Representative Thompson is also serving in his 5th term and serves as co-chair of the Bipartisan Congressional Career and Technical Education Congress. So we're very proud of the work that he's done and the laws that he's passed as well. He's a community leader and a volunteer firefighter with over 3 decades of service. GT is acutely aware of the challenges facing Pennsylvania communities, and agriculture, education, and labor committees, GT is in a unique position to bring his experience and knowledge to bear on the issues facing rural businesses and communities across his district and America. So at this time, I'd like to graciously and proudly introduce Chairperson Congressman David Scott. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. Delighted. Thank you, Ryan Quarles, for that very nice introduction. And I think to your CEO, Dr. Barb Glenn, is that correct? And let me just say what an exciting time we have and challenging time we have, being the shepherds, as I like to say, of our wonderful world of agriculture. And at a most significant time, agriculture is right here at the centerpiece of one of the most tumultuous times in our nation's history. We're at a time when we're faced with this life and death struggle and health issue of COVID-19. At the same time, we need to strengthen our food supply. And I believe Dr. Ryan mentioned it also about my being the first African American. What a wondrous achievement that is. And I'm not saying that for myself. I'm saying it because it happened by a very broad, diverse coalition of 144 members. Over nearly 70% of the Democratic caucus chose me and elected me. And that is a great testimony of the greatness of our nation. And so I'm very delighted to do that. And I mentioned the other issue earlier on the pandemic is forcing us in agriculture to really hope and pray that we can lift up the significance of agriculture as the single most important industry we have. It's our food, the food we eat, our water, the clothes we wear, our shelter, the basics of our civilization and our quality of life, not to mention our trade and the economic impact. Did you know that now 44 of our 50 states, the largest part of their economies, of 44 of our 50 states, is our wonderful world of agriculture. It is the heart and soul of our financial stability, our trade, our dealings with cross-border in terms of derivatives and swaps, and making sure that we play a vital and productive role in this $832 trillion piece of the world's economy. So agriculture is very important. And now we've got to move forward and make sure that agriculture is at the front of the point of the spear when it comes to dealing with some very critical issues, paramount of which is climate change. Now, why do I say that? Just look what's happened in Texas. Who would have thought? Just look what is happening with lineup after lineup of hurricanes, devastating one behind the other. So much so, we ran out of our own alphabet to name them. Went to the Greek alphabet and ran out of that. We got a problem here, and agriculture needs to be at the front of it because it is our food security. Two elements: the water coming from the heavens above, and that richness of the soil with the necessary levels of carbon. That's it. And from that, all these wondrous foods and products and everything comes from those two things. So there's nobody, no entity that is more impacted from climate and weather as our farmers. We need to be on the front of that, and I'm proud to say, thanks to the hard work of my staff, we will be having a hearing on Thursday, getting out and making sure we establish agriculture as that industry that needs and must be the leader and at the forefront when it comes at how we're dealing with climate change and weather patterns. And then we also need to, and as Ryan mentioned, I am indeed the first African American to chair this wondrous committee in history, and I'm so proud of that. And that's why it's so important to me and to you for us to get these racial discrimination charges out of the way and resolve them and lift up our Black farmers. Look, our Black farmers are the pioneer farmers. We did the work, plowed the fields, cropped the tobacco, picked the cotton, all of these things. Nobody has paid the price and earned the opportunities to soar to levels of magnificence when it comes to agriculture as our Black farmers. All of us stand on the shoulders of those Blacks who did the hard work, did it free as slaves. We owe it to them. Those shoulders we all stand on now, Black as well as white farmers. So we want to deal with that. And we're going to have Secretary Vilsack come in. You all know so many of these demonstration charges were laid at Secretary Vilsack's feet. It's important for him. I know Secretary Vilsack. I served with him for 8 years. He's a good man. Some of these things, it is important for us to clear the air. He will be here, along with the Black farmers, along with all of us, so we can make sure that this wondrous world of agriculture is here for everybody, regardless of race, creed, or color. And then we need to move quickly, immediately, to hunger. We've got a hunger crisis here. And if there was one major thing we've got to do as the champions of agriculture, it is make sure that nobody goes to bed hungry. Right now, 12 million, more than 12 million of our children in this country, the greatest country in the world, 12 million are going to bed hungry every night. Malnutrition, that can't stand. So we're going to address that, bring folks in so we can deal with this issue of hunger. We're going to work with Feeding America, which are our community food banks. They're running out of capacity to purchase the food. That must be purchased. So we're going to find out and make sure we secure our food security on that. And then this other issue, broadband, our rural communities. And as Dr. Ryan Quarles mentioned, I was born on a farm in about as rural a town as you can get. If anybody knows about South Carolina and you say Aner, you know, that's serious country. And I love Aner. That's where I grew up on my grandfather's farm. And I know and I see so many of our small towns are disappearing. Aner, when I go back, it's not the same. We used to have state fairs, a lot of things there, a movie theater, a drugstore now. So many of our communities are disappearing. That must stop. And we have got to take seriously getting broadband, putting the money in. And then there's crop insurance and disaster aid. And we are going to move very quickly on that. We are going to put forward a bill that will set up a separate entity funding for a disaster aid. That's been part of the problem. We've not been able to get the disaster aid down to our farmers in time to save their farms. You all know we had many suicides from that. And I know what a farm means to a family. It's their life. And when we couldn't get that money down, they not only lost their farm, they lost farm families from that. We've got to address that and make sure we get that down. And then finally, crop insurance. I am very concerned about the varieties of issues that our inability to respond to in various areas of crop insurance. So we're going to bring our crop insurers in and see how we can tighten that up. Thank you so much. And now I look forward to hearing my distinguished ranking member Thompson.
Well, Chairman, thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you all for the opportunity to join you today. I know I've always valued my relationship with our Pennsylvania Agriculture Secretary. In fact, we have each other's cell phone numbers, and we were working on a protein processing plant issue on Saturday and Sunday. And thank you. So thank you to all the associates, all that are involved on this call, all obviously under the umbrella of this association, for the work that you do each and every day to make sure that what I think is probably the industry that touches people's lives multiple times a day, and goes well beyond obviously access to high quality, affordable, high quality and safe food. It's about our rural economy as well. It's about addressing the issues in rural America. And we know we may be outnumbered in the population of urban and suburban America, but quite frankly, landmass wise, America is rural geographically. You know that, and quite frankly, there's not an American family out there that doesn't use the implements of agriculture probably an average of 3 times a day, whether it be a knife, fork, or spoon. And so I want to thank you for what you do in your respective states. And we have issues that need to be addressed to protect and promote a strong agriculture economy, strong rural economy, especially as we overcome COVID and we find ourselves in a post-pandemic economy. And I think that's coming. When you look at the rate of vaccinations, you look at the prevalence of population immunity. I know some people, or herd immunity is another term people obviously refer to it as. We need to prepare for that post-pandemic economy. But there are also issues that existed prior to the pandemic that need our attention, including rebuilding rural America and growing new markets, modernizing our farm safety net and our disaster relief, and our pro-growth solutions on climate and stewardship. Now, I'm an optimist. Despite a tough political climate, I think we have opportunities on all these fronts. We have tight margins in both chambers, and with any hope, that means that we even have more folks looking to find common ground. I actually believe that, and we are razor thin in the House. I think the Agriculture Committee at this point is 27, 24, single digits in the House, and obviously a 50-50 tie in the Senate. I look at that as an opportunity. Once we get past these early executive orders that all administrations do, and we get through this budget reconciliation, which has been, completely unilateral, understand that. I think the only thing that we'll be able to successfully do, both as a committee and quite frankly as a Congress, will be strong bipartisan initiatives. And I know I'm looking forward to working with Chairman Scott so that we make sure that the Agriculture Committee has a large presence and voice, loud voice in that bipartisan work. I have faith that this will certainly be the case for the Ag Committee. In the near term, in the immediate future, we must first unfreeze the CFAP, Coronavirus Food Assistance Program Round 3 payments to ensure that our farmers, ranchers, producers, and some processors who have been hit hard by COVID are provided relief. And I'm hopeful all my colleagues can agree on that front. I've already had a conversation with Secretary Vilsack, who I also have had a great working relationship with for 8 years when he was within the Obama administration, quite frankly, his service with the Dairy Export Council. And so he, I've certainly reinforced with him that and I wish him also luck in his confirmation, which will occur this week. And I think once confirmed, I believe that the newly reappointed secretary will move ahead with the release of CFAP 3. As you all know, that's extremely important. That's a part of that over $1 trillion is still sitting out there that Congress has done its job, has been signed by back in 2020 by the administration, President Trump at that point, and those need to be deployed. All of them need to be deployed, but especially the really focusing in on the agriculture. We must look back at what has been spent fighting COVID, what hasn't been spent, and the unmet needs, and we have to come together to address. Excessive spending in general or on unproductive priorities, I strongly believe is a step backwards for the economy and a strong, lasting agriculture commodity. It's contrary to achieving that. This Congress, I plan to push for movement on several related items and issues related certainly to broadband and rural revitalization. There's certainly priorities here. Reliable, high-quality access to internet fundamentally underpins the economic development needs of rural America. And I know my colleagues share this focus, and it should be focused on qualitatively on sufficient broadband to handle, that has the bandwidth to handle the platforms that we know we need to have. And on it is starting with precision agriculture, with commerce and entrepreneurship, with healthcare, with education. Items like climate, disaster relief, and Farm Bill oversight also deserve our attention. And I'll be pushing for proactive solutions and dialogue on all of these fronts. In climate, innovative conservation practices through public-private partnerships, and improving the proven voluntary cost share and incentive-based conservation programs is a top priority. I was just participating in a conservative climate solutions conference over the weekend, and it is amazing the amount of gigatons. I'm not sure exactly how big a gigaton is, but I know it's huge, of carbon that is taken out of the air annually just based on land, proper land use. And certainly things like precision agriculture, cover crops, healthy soils, active forest management, it's just amazing. In 2017, the amount of carbon sequestered really made land use, which is largely agriculture, a carbon sink, carbon negative. With that year, it was estimated 11.1% offset that could then be applied to energy production or whatever industry you would need to offset their carbon emissions. So a very exciting area that I'm looking forward to engaging in. Disaster relief, the disaster relief amendment adopted recently in our committee really is an example of the bipartisan work that is necessary and that must continue in order to aid farmers, ranchers, and producers impacted by natural disasters. We have disaster programs that do work. We need to make sure that they are more, obviously more effective, more timely, and getting the response that they need. On the Farm Bill, quite frankly, our oversight has been lacking. A lot of that we can blame on COVID. It dominated 2020, but we are long overdue from doing actual oversight, title by title, hearing from USDA. Another thing I've had a conversation with incoming Secretary Vilsack on, and I look forward to partnering with Chairman Scott to make certain we know how the 2008 Farm Bill was implemented, what its successes, its challenges, and areas for improvement. That's how we prepare for the next Farm Bill. As the House Republican leader on the Agriculture Committee, I'm going to lead as the voice for rural America and a better economic future for all. We're the House majority, and and the Senate share these interests on issues, I'm going to be a leader, I promise to be a great partner. Promise to flex a great relationship I have with Chairman Scott. We've served together. I've had the privilege of serving with Chairman Scott for 13 years. He is a statesman, and I'm looking forward to that, to move those things that we can agree upon forward. On issues where these priorities and principles aren't driving the policy, though, we'll be prepared to expose harmful ideas and put forward clear policy contrasts. That's our responsibility to do. In closing, it's important to me to hear from you, the states, and because you are one of the most important partners. That is something I value, that relationship tremendously. We want to make certain federal policies make sense, and dialogues like this help us to understand where there is work to be done. My team and I will continue to stand by to listen, and we look forward to these continued conversations, and most importantly, these opportunities to hear from communities and individuals who quite frankly feed and provide us the fiber and fuel our nation. So thank you, and thank you to all my colleagues who joined me today.
Well, thank you, Ranking Member Thompson, of course, Chairman Scott. We're so thrilled that you all both took time out of a very busy day, a work day for both of you, to address NASDA. We look forward to having you all as regular guests throughout the year as we talk about these issues. If you don't mind, a question or two. This year, NASDA's conference theme is called Together at the Table. And given a strong history of bipartisanship, with both of you all just referenced within the agriculture community, how do you all plan to work together to resolve some of the more pressing issues that the committee is going to discuss this year, including the halfway point of the 2018 Farm Bill, more specifically, your visions on trade, rural broadband, and perhaps new ideas for the next upcoming Farm Bill?
Well, you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, our committee, first of all, I've served on for 18 years, and we have a reputation as being perhaps I'm getting a little tangled up here. And I take great pride in this, that our reputation is being the most bipartisan committee. I mentioned at the very beginning that we were the most important committee because agriculture is our most important industry. And we know we have to come together to make sure, Republicans and Democrats, to make sure our people are fed, to make sure our people are clothed, to make sure that our people have the shelter that they need, the basics, and the economic and financial security that agriculture has as the anchor piece of being the most significant part of 44 of our 50 states' economies. And as Congressman Thompson mentioned, he and I served together. Let me just tell you of a great example. We talked about addressing concerns and making sure our farms and our agriculture is shared by everybody, regardless of race, creed, or color. We passed together, Democrats and Republicans, what is hailed as one of the most significant bipartisan bills in history up here. That is when Democrats and Republicans on our committee came together and gave for the first time $80 million to the African American land grant colleges and universities. You talk about bipartisanship. And keep this in mind, 75% of those African American, 19 of them Black colleges and universities are located in Republican districts. So I hold that up as a beacon of light to let you know how serious both Ranking Member Thompson and I take our charge. And plus, I grew up in not only Anner, but in Scranton. So I got a little bit of that Pennsylvania roots in me as well. I told Joe Biden that, and where I went to school, and he said, yeah, you went to school in Washington Avenue Elementary. Joe Biden said, yeah, I went there too. So, but let me just share with you that on the trade issue, on the other issues, is so vitally important. But we've got to have an open ear to those of you who are the ones out there who are meeting all of these. We're sitting Congress. We depend on you all to come and help guide us on what to do.
Well, and thank you for the questions. I think in terms of working together, I think as I look and kind of diagnose what has made the Agriculture Committee successful, in all of my experience, is especially when we keep our eye on our focus on the American farmer and rural citizens, rural families. Because if we're driven by one common focus and one common goal, and that is obviously, and under that, it's about obviously having access to affordable, high quality and safe food, but it's about rural economic development. It's about the rural economy. And so I think, so that's how I think that there's a willingness. I've got friends on both sides of the aisle in the Agriculture Committee. And as long as we share that focus, as long as that's who we're serving, and we're not serving, I'll be frank here, we're not serving the leadership of either party. We're not serving, whoever happens to be in the White House. So we have to work with those folks. Don't get me wrong, and we need to collaborate. That's a good farm team, but our focus needs to be on the American farmer and, quite frankly, the American family and the rural family in particular. And then, trade, we have some jurisdiction over trade, obviously with the market access program, with discovering new markets, and we need to lean into that. But we also need to exercise. I know the chairman and I are both a part of I don't know whether we call it a workforce or a task force that Chairman Neal with Ways and Means has put together on trade, so that we make sure that we will make sure that agriculture has a strong voice with that. There's a lot of chairmen and leaders of both parties, the committees that are made up of that, and agriculture is kind of at the top of the list, at least alphabetically. So we know we're always called on early. Which is nice, actually. In terms of rural broadband, it's time to fill the digital divide, period. I think we've made great progress, and we own a great deal of that with the rural utility service. But perhaps we need to be a little more creative. We've been doing a great job piecemeal, but if we'd have followed a piecemeal approach with back 90 years ago with the electrification of the United States, we'd still have some rural areas in the dark, perhaps. So I'm not sure where all the solutions are there, but I know that we need to mount a full court press on closing this digital divide. And then the next farm bill, we've got to start the oversight on it. We need to hear from USDA. Obviously, we're getting feedback, what's working, what's not working. I will say in the dairy realm, it seems like the dairy margin coverage program, hear good things from our dairy farmers who elected to sign up for that. But that's the kind of feedback that we need to have. And the members of this association, I think, are key, because you hear from these farmers and ranchers on a regular basis, if not daily basis. So we look forward to hearing the voices of those farmers and ranchers, but please, you also be their voice, so that we can work together and identify, what a farm bill in 2023 or whenever looks like.
We want to say thank you to both of you for not only joining us today, but your service towards American agriculture. Please know that Nasda stands ready to be right there with you as a witness, as a participant, as you all discuss these many issues. We want to particularly just thank you for your time, Ranking Member Thompson, and Chairman Scott. My mother taught at HBCU for 30 years. And not all of us are from Scranton, but we've all watched The Office at some point. So thank you all so much for your involvement. At this time, I'd like to transition to our next special speaker today, Senator Bozeman from Arkansas. He serves as the ranking member on the Senate Agriculture Committee. We're so fortunate to have him join us today. He has a hard stop here in a few minutes, so I'm going to keep the introduction very brief. He has a little vote to go take on a nomination of perhaps a future Secretary of Agriculture here in a few minutes, but very quickly, his family's from Arkansas, and they've been there for 5 generations. He was raised in Fort Smith and graduated from Northside High School. And for you football fans out there, he played football for the University of Arkansas Razorbacks while completing his pre-optometry requirements in college. He graduated from the Southern College of Optometry in 1977 and soon entered private practice at the same time, starting a business as well. He has a long-term success as not only a healthcare provider, but a small business owner as well. He was first elected to the United States Senate in 2010 and was sworn into his second term on January 3rd, 2017. Prior to serving in the Senate, he served in the U.S. House in the 3rd District in Arkansas. We are so pleased to have him today. And a fun fact is that he has successfully raised polled Hereford cattle that were competitive in the show ring as well, and also in bull testing at Oklahoma State University. He is married, has 3 daughters and 4 grandchildren. Nasda, please help me welcome Senator Bozeman from Arkansas, ranking member on the Senate Ag Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Very good. It's interesting you mentioned the bull testing. I know I'm the only senator. I think I'm the only congressperson that has a AI certificate. So again, I'm very competent in that regard. But Dick Armey came down and he was campaigning for me. Dick Armey was the majority leader in the House when I was first elected in a special election. And he looked at the bull testing thing and he kind of looked at it and he said, explain this to me. So I talked to him about, how you select your best bulls. You send them over there and either you might want to sell them or you might want to keep them, for your own stock. And finally he looked at me, he said, John, I don't understand this, but if you're an expert on bull, you're going to do great in Congress. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So what I'd like to do is just visit with you for a couple of minutes. I do have to go down and say some nice things about our future secretary, former Secretary Vilsack, and we're going to vote him in within the hour or so. So that's really important. But I just want to say, first of all, thanks to Wes and the great job that he and his staff do in Arkansas. You all really are so very important. And in many cases, in fact, I'd say in most cases, you're not only, some of the most respected people in agriculture in our states, but some of the most respected people, period. And so again, thank you for your service and all that you do. And I hope that we can continue to form an even closer relationship. We're going to be looking to people like you as we decide things, making sure that we flesh out the unintended consequences. The answers to our solution need to come from the ground up. And certainly you are out there every day talking to our producers, talking to all forms of agriculture. 117 Congress is unique. We're in a situation where the margins are very narrow. Democrats control the House, but not by very much. And then we have a tie in the Senate. So as all that means is for us to get things done, we're going to have to continue to work together. We have a long history of doing that. I'm really excited about Congressman Scott, David, and GT over in the House. These are people that I served with and really count as good friends. And then also my relationship with Senator Stabenow is, again, very good. We've worked together on a lot of things, particularly the nutrition issues. And so we're going to continue and have the working relationship, much as my predecessor did, Senator Roberts, again, working together. As you all know, agriculture is not so much Republicans or Democrats. It is more regional. And so the key, and I think we learned this in the in the last couple of farm bills, in order to get a good, strong vote. We had record votes in the House and the Senate on the last farm bill. You have to do a couple of things. You have to educate the members as to why agriculture is important. You say, well, John, well, that's kind of crazy, but it's not. You know, so many rural America is simply not represented the way it once was. And you all play a great role, again, in helping us do that, educate the members. And then you have to take care of everyone. The committee has to come out united. All of those different regions, all of the different commodities have to be well represented, well taken care of. If we do that, then we come out united, and we've got a much, much better chance of having good success on the floor. Trade certainly is important. I know in listening to some of the guys talk, you know, again, that's so important. Broadband is something that I think is kind of the silver lining of the COVID. We've had such tragedy come out of that. But on the other hand, in regard to broadband, we've understood the importance regarding not only in agriculture, precision agriculture, all of these things that make it such that you can monitor so much better, be so much more efficient. That's good from all kinds, good from your input costs. It's also good from a climate standpoint, but also regarding telemedicine, which is great for rural America, which is so very important, and telecommuting, which I would argue also is going to be a real boon, a real boost to rural America as we go forward. Climate, the administration is really focused on that, and that's certainly something that we need to be concerned about. On the other hand, my criteria is that as we go forward with issues concerning climate, that they're voluntary, and then also very importantly, that as the farmer does the work, he gets the benefit, the primary benefit. We don't want to create situations where the farmer, as we have in so many other situations, does a lot of work and yet somehow seems to be left out the way that we'd like to be. So those are really, because I've got a limited amount of time, I really want to hear from you all. So that's really all I've got to say now, but I would be glad to answer any easy questions that you got for me.
Well, thank you.
Kentucky and Arkansas have to stick together. We like you unless we're playing you in something.
That's
We
right.
beat you all the other day in basketball. We were so proud of that.
It's been a tough year for us. So appreciative of your time today. And the first question I have has to do with rural broadband. There's been a lot of talk among our Nasda commissioners, secretaries, and directors about what exactly we could expect, say, this calendar year with funding of rural broadband, and how exactly would that work? Would there be more emphasis going through USDA or through the FCC? Do you have any initial thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm a co-chair of the Rural Broadband Caucus, and it's so very important. And again, this is a very bipartisan issue. The good news is, as I mentioned earlier, we are very aware of what broadband can do. We used to think in terms of the 3 R's, roads, railroads, and runways, and you got to have some water. That's how you prosper. That's how you move forward. If you don't have broadband, you simply are not going to grow as a community or an area. It's just as simple as that. So there's all kinds of resources being pushed out. We're doing some of that through USDA. Our co-ops have gotten involved. The Federal Communications Commission is certainly the major player. One of the things that we have to do, and everybody agrees with this, and we're making some headway, in order to solve a problem, you're going to know what the problem is. And so the mapping now is terrible. It's just not good at all. Everybody recognizes that. Lots of work being done to fix that. And then the other thing is we're going to have to raise the standard. The standard now is what is considered reasonable, or whatever the wording is for that, is very low. And now with all of the different platforms that we have and this and that require more than that to run, we're going to need to raise the standard, identify where it is, and then use all the resources that we can in every way of funding. Good news is that as we've done these COVID packages and this and that, there's always some broadband dollars put in there. And I think in the not too distant future, that's going to pay off.
Well, that's great. That is consistently a tier 1 issue for Nasda and our members. And we hope that whether it's through a CARES Act or infrastructure bill for a funding bill, we can continue to have a partnership with our state departments of ag and broadband initiatives.
And I think the key to that is certainly there's a federal component to that. And I think we're stepping up. Going to have to get the states also through my influence, being a senator, congressman, whatever. And then again, the influence that you all have, which is great, and the farm communities you represent to really demand that again, our states come through and, our local municipalities to get this thing done.
Well, we stand ready as an organization to work with you on that and figure out ways to get that last mile. The question I asked the previous panel is obviously the ag committees are historically bipartisan. I know you got to get going here.
No, I'm good.
What are your views on the upcoming discussions about trade? You just covered broadband, but also the fact that we're halfway through a farm bill and discussions are going to be starting again for the next one. What are your initial thoughts on a future farm bill, but also trade as well?
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, the bipartisanship is really important. A little bit disappointed. The bill that we're seeing now, the $1.9 trillion, has had no Republican input at all, zero. In fact, it hasn't had much Democrat input. It's basically coming from the administration. That's a problem. Hopefully we'll get through this and then again start working together. Trade is really where it's at. In Arkansas, 40% of the product that we grow is exported. I don't know what it is in Kentucky, but I'm sure it's probably approaching that. Maybe a little more or a little less. But it is something that we've got to maintain the markets that we've got. And then we also have to continually be looking for new markets. I'm very interested in Cuba. They import 80% of their food. That's a natural market for our country. The UK also is out there. We need to get something worked out with our Asian friends. So I'm pleased that the Chinese seem to be, even in a difficult COVID period, seem to be living up to their agreement, maybe exceeding it. The president got really rough as a result of, them not playing by the rules of the Chinese government, not the Chinese people. Lie, cheat, steal, manipulate. They don't play by the rules. So we got their attention. And the good news is that seems to be working pretty well. And we need to, again, make sure that they abide in the future going forward. So I think that's in a good position right now. I mentioned broadband, how important that is in trade. So again, those are things that I think that there's a good consensus, very bipartisan consensus as to the path forward.
My last question or comment for you is that oftentimes the state departments of agriculture, we're not just dealing with USDA, but we're also dealing with the FDA and EPA. And so please keep us in mind as we continue to have those discussions with those sister organizations as well. And one big issue right now in ag, especially with research and development, is sometimes the lengthy approval process for new ag technologies among those agencies, and sometimes they're co-regulated. And we recently authored an op-ed that talked about the need for there to be more timely response when it comes to product approvals and having the availability of ag technology. And I was curious about what your thoughts are on that.
I think that's so very important regarding the timely approvals. We do talk a lot about climate, very importantly, but that's the answer to that. As we protect marginal lands, then we need to be more productive in the other areas. But when you talk about looking at using less pesticides, herbicides, less water, all of those things, that's how you achieve it. Is selecting, through all the different resources that we have now to produce the GMOs that really can make us so more productive, and thus do a good job of feeding not only the United States but the world. Really disappointed in Mexico with their GMO position. That's not a good situation at all. We need to hold them accountable. The good news is if you have a hearing regarding GMOs, I've been through 3 administrations now, Bush, and then President Obama, President Trump, and now we're getting back into the Biden years. But if you bring the USDA over, when you bring the experts over, they'll all testify that GMOs are perfectly safe. There's simply no reason at all from a scientific basis, and we talk a lot about using science. From a scientific basis, again, there's no reason not to go forward. And sadly, it's just the opposite in a place like China, not China, in a place like Mexico, and the EU puts pressure on them. They put pressure on Africa and places like that. That's how you solve their problems, though, is getting them the seed and the ability to be very productive, and that's how you achieve it, is through GMOs. So it's something that we can be very, very proud of our technology, and certainly I'm committed to providing the research dollars that we can go forward. But you're so right. We don't just need to get the stuff researched and discovered. That's got to be in a timely fashion so that it can be made into a product. That's what we're lacking right now.
Well, Senator, thank you for your time today. We appreciate that, especially that last point you made on ag technology. A lot of our partners are in that field, and it's so important with the new USMCA and the biotech chapter, as well as a new discussion with United Kingdom with Brexit, that we have opportunity to get in the markets that traditionally been hard for us to get through. And of course, we want all of our decisions to be based off science. And so we appreciate that. We do have a member who has been nominated for Deputy Secretary at USDA, the Virginia Secretary, Jill Brana. So she'll be coming before you soon for her hearing. We appreciate that. We know you're going to be joining us for a SASDA meeting in June. We appreciate that. And since Wes Ward is on the call and that you're a cattle producer, I just want to say thanks for being all beef and no bull today. I'll say the same about Wes Ward, but we appreciate all that you do. And I know you got to go take a big critical vote right now, but thank you for your time today. And
No, sure.
With you.
We appreciate it, and I look forward to getting to visit with you, Virginia, member about her post. I hear an awful lot of nice things in that regard, so that's always good. I just want to thank you all. You all are a great resource and just do a tremendous job. And as I said, you're not only the most respected people in agriculture in your state, but just to have a heavy, because most of our states are rural, you have an important voice, an important part to play, and we will help you any way we can. So we do appreciate you.
Thank you, Senator. Couldn't have said it better myself. We look forward to working with you. At this time, we'd like to remind our members that our next session starts at 3 o'clock. And as an attendee, you can access those freely via our website through Attendee Hub as well. We also want to say thank you for all those who are attending, our special guests, especially our Manners students and others who are going to be attending with us this week along the way. It's so important that if you have time, maybe reach out to these individuals just to say thanks for joining us. Thank you to our sponsors as well. So at this time, I also want to note that we hope to have Senator Stabenow at a future Nasda event, and we welcome her leadership as well. So take a break. We'll see you again at 3 o'clock, and we're so happy to kick off the 2021 Nasda Winter Policy Conference.